How you doing, guys? One thing everyone has in common, especially very young people, they all want to be accepted. They all want to fit in. Have you ever watched a group of kids playing together? There was always one that tends not to quite fit in, but what they do is they observe the others and they try acting like the others so they're accepted. For the most part, they're usually not, and they're usually singled out. Now, kids can be cruel, and they can be very creative with their names they come up with. And they no sooner get to know this kid where they isolate them. The funny thing is, with all these kids, they have to group together to isolate the person, and that one person stands alone. That can be devastating to a kid. I grew up, I was not a happy kid. I was not athletic like my brothers. Matter of fact, I didn't have a lot of the talents my brothers had. Of course, they didn't have a lot of the talents I had, but that was never emphasized on. I grew up pretty much my father making comparisons between me and my two brothers, which was never really appreciated. We've both talked about it since then and had tried to patch things up over the years, but you can't play catch up. Unfortunately, when somebody is hit with something like that at a very young age, it tends to bother them. They get very self-conscious. I didn't develop any self-confidence till I was well into my 30s. I was extremely self-conscious. Was not happy as a kid. Now I stood out. I was very different from anybody else. And when I was younger, I didn't much care. But deep down inside, it did bother me. Now in junior high school, I was very loud, very brash. And by the time I hit high school, I quieted down a great deal, and I started doing a lot of soul searching. And I realized, I'm never going to be like anybody else. And I started embracing who I was. Because the thing was, I didn't see anybody else like me. And I kind of started to like myself. A lot of people didn't, but oh well. Unfortunately, most people never get that stage. They grow up self-conscious about who they are because they are against the majority. And unfortunately, the majority of people always go with what's trending, with what's popular. Well, somebody might not like what's popular, and they kind of look at you like this. You don't like it? But that's trending. That's in. Whoopity-doopity-doo. You got to be very careful with people, especially younger people, because the thing is, you can devastate somebody and not even know it. My father used to call me some of the most horrific names growing up. And being physically abused, I got used to that. The name calling, that stuck for many, many years. Remember the old adage, and everybody heard this as a kid. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but your names will never hurt me. Which is totally wrong, because words last longer than physical injury. They can stay with you for years. One thing I don't let people know is what triggers me, because I do have some triggers from my childhood. So I keep a lot of that to myself, because there are a few people around me that would love to capitalize on that. If you grew up as a misfit, and you don't quite fit in with the crowd, do not be ashamed of that. Because the thing is, if you're fitting in with everybody and following the crowd, that's what you are, is a follower. See, the misfits, the ones who are cast off to stand alone, that's exactly what they do. They stand alone. And I've noticed for the most part, this is my circle, people who I associate with, for the most part are people that don't quite fit in. And there is no shame in that. Don't let anybody put you down. Don't let anybody make you feel like dirt because you don't fit in. I see this everywhere, and this goes on today. Much like it did when I was younger, it's more noticeable today. This world has gone so crazy, but I just cannot see myself following the crowd like that. I never could. The thing is, if I don't like something, I don't like something. It's funny that I was lured into the Jehovah's Witness organization Where I was not one to follow the crowd, I was not susceptible to peer pressure, so it felt kind of odd being in an organization full of misfits. But if you notice, all JWs, they all follow the lead. They all have to go with what the governing body says. And it didn't take long before they realized that I did not quite fit in. And the one thing I noticed, they do try and squash your individuality. Now, it took me my whole life to accept who I was and accept my individuality. To allow these jabronis to crush it? I don't think so. But it wasn't very long before I was labeled a bad association, that I didn't quite fit in. I was out in service one time, and I actually had one woman say to me, "You need to act more like one of us." Well, I said to her, I says, "Well, whether you like it or not, I am one of you." But apparently I didn't act like a JW. I really didn't look like a JW. Even when I was out in service with them, I kind of stood out. And I kind of like that. I always liked my individuality. And I always liked being different. I don't like to be another cog in the machine. And unfortunately, in this society, what they do is they isolate those people that are different, so they feel bad about themselves. But the one thing about the people that don't quite go with the crowd, that don't quite fit in, they're generally the first people to wake up. They're generally the first ones to see what is going on. Because if you're following the crowd, much like JWs, much like many people in society, you're going through life with blinders on. You believe what everybody else believes. And anytime you hear anything different, that person you cast aside, that person you keep, oh, he's strange. He's one of them, one of those conspiracy theorists. Really. Don't let them put you down. If you're different, you know you're different. You're never going to fit in. And in all honesty, you really don't want to fit in with the crowd. I never like cliques, because I have noticed that people that are in these cliques, they may get along, but they really don't like each other either. But they're afraid to stand alone. So no matter what they tell you, never be afraid to stand alone. I've watched this my whole life. I've watched people isolated and other people trying to squash them. And with that kind of abuse, they either one of two things. They either deteriorate and let society crush them, or they just get up and say, "Frig it." There's a technical name for people like this who follow the crowd. They're fuckwits. So don't let these fuckwits mess with you. Embrace your individuality. No matter who you are or where you are, don't let society shape you. If you're in an organization like Watchtower and Jehovah's Witness organization, do not let them do the same thing, because that's exactly what they do. I never fit in, and I was always happy about that. I don't fit in much anywhere, and I'm happy about that. And if anybody doesn't like it, I really don't care. But never let it be a negative when somebody says you don't quite fit in. That is not a negative, guys. That's a positive, and I've always viewed it as a positive. This is something I've just been thinking about the last few days, and I wanted to get it out there. Anyways, guys, you all have a good day. I'll be talking to you soon.